Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Cooking for One or Two workshop. My name is Jennifer Brown, and I'm the Family Consumer Science Extension Agent with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. So why bother? I often hear a lot of people when they're talking about, cooking for themselves or just themselves and a spouse. Well, why should I bother? It's just me. Well, for one reason, food is a necessity. We love to eat, and we have to. I will also say that home cooking tastes much better. I don't know if you're like me, but I know growing up and I think of my grandma's food or even just that down home Southern cooking. And I think it tastes so much better than things that I can just go out and buy from a restaurant, as well as it's cheaper. But you want to get creative. You want to spice up your meals. That includes maybe sharing meals with friends, including music, or just having a nice, enjoyable time in your home. Because even though eating is a necessity and we love to do it, we should enjoy it. So that might be having potlucks with your friend. I often tell people when they ask me why should they bother, because you're important too, and your health and nutrition are just as important as the rest of your family. Whether you used to cook for a family and now the kids are all out of the house and you're an empty nester, you are just as important and you need to stay healthy and stay strong too. But when you're looking at cooking for yourself or cooking for yourself and a spouse, we don't want you to forget about nutrition, because that's one of the things that we often teach. We want it to be a colorful My Plate. The My Plate is what is now known, we grew up knowing it as the food guide pyramid, but now it's the My Plate. You can find plenty of resources about the My Plate from the United States Department of Ag, or go to their website at choosemyplate.gov. It's got plenty of recipes, plenty of fact sheets, tips, suggestions, weekly menus, all kinds of stuff, even simple, fun coloring sheets for your children or grandchildren. But using the My Plate will help you make healthier decisions. It also makes it very easy to remember because it's very bright, it's very colorful, and we understand what a plate should look like. You need food from all five food groups at each of your meals, focusing on the fact that half of your plate should be fruits and veggies. Instead of just focusing on what meat you're going to have, focus on the rest of your plate. Have a variety of vegetables. We often tell people to eat a rainbow because we want it to be very colorful. We want a lot of different fruits and veggies because that will vary your nutrition. Some of your foods will give you potassium, some will give you phosphorus or fiber or whatever else. When you're looking at the protein, which is often the star of the show on most people's meal, we want you to make sure that it's lean, that it doesn't have as much fat. When you're focused on your grains, instead of just eating your pasta or your rice or your cereals or things like that, we want it to be whole grains. We want them to be brown rice, to be whole grain pasta, whole grain bread, because it has more fiber and it's healthier for you. Some tips for cooking for one or two is easy. Prepare larger amounts. Even though it's just you or one other person, doesn't mean you can't cook the same meals you've always cooked. You can still prepare those larger amounts, but maybe freezing the portions for later. And have a plan for those leftovers if you are going to cook the large amounts. If you cook chicken one night, do you have other recipes that you can put chicken in throughout the week so you're not wasting? Because we don't want a lot of food waste either. And as I mentioned before, it should be a fun time. Prepare meals that you can share with others, whether it's friends or family, even if it's a lonely neighbor. Invite them over or take them some food too. You can reduce the size of your favorite meals, and we'll provide you with a chart in just a little bit of how to do that, what proportions you should do that in. You can even buy new cookbooks. There are tons of cookbooks out there for whatever you're interested in. So there are some cookbooks just for one or two people. There are cookbooks if you're interested in doing more with crock pots or Instapots or whatever you're interested, freezer meals. So there's a wide variety of cookbooks that you can purchase, or you can also just buy smaller packages and individual servings. If there's only one or two of you, you don't need to buy the big bulk packages that you might used to have bought. If you are going to buy them, again, freezing some of it for later. So we have this chart here that I mentioned about reducing the size of your recipe. So I'm going to send the chart out in an email after this workshop to all of the participants so you can have those measurements. But as I mentioned before, you can make the entire recipe and freeze some for later, or you can reduce it. This chart shows you how to reduce the recipe to half of its size, or how to reduce it to a third of its size. One thing that I do is if I'm making like a lasagna that's in a 9x13 pan and I want to half the recipe, what I can actually do is I can make the normal recipe that it calls for in a 9x13 pan. I can eat what I want, and then I can cut the rest of it into individual serving sizes, wrapping each individual serving size in aluminum foil and stick that in my freezer. So I might have, if there's 12 servings in a lasagna and, I only eat 2 of the last, yesterday and today, then I've got 10 left. I have 10 lasagnas that I can eat over the next couple of months whenever I feel like it. I can pull out one of those frozen individual servings of lasagna and heat that up. Or I can, as I'm preparing the lasagna and putting it in the pan, instead of using a 9x13 pan, I can use 2 8x8 pans. So I'll make the lasagna, but I'm putting it in 2 smaller pans. One I will cook and eat now and eat some leftovers over the next couple of days. The other one, I will freeze the entire pan and I can cook it and eat it later. We want you to make your meal times enjoyable again. Even if it's because the kids are out of the house, it doesn't mean that you and your spouse can't still have fun with meals. I would love it if I didn't have the kids, the picky eaters in the house that I have to kind of work around. But I still try to keep it simple because since I do have children, I want very few ingredients because I don't have a huge food budget as well. I will utilize freezer meals, maybe making some chili or some different things that I can make in a crock pot as well. But no matter what I make, I'm going to enjoy what I eat. If you have a couple of friends, say you have 4 friends and you want to start a dinner group, it could be you and your 4 friends get together and every night during the week, all 5 weekdays, you go to one person's house and they make a meal. So you're only preparing one dinner for the entire Monday through Friday period. But you're going over to Susie's house Tuesday night, and then Sally's house Wednesday night, and Jane's house Thursday, and Debbie's house Friday. And every night you get to be social. You get the fun experience of having fun with your friends, and you only have the pressure of having to cook one dinner meal that entire week. You don't have to worry about leftovers. You don't have to worry about cleanup except for one meal. Or you can also do something that some people do, cook once and eat for a week. I know some people, especially when I was younger, I might do this. I'd cook, say, a big old pot of spaghetti on a Sunday night, and I'd eat off of that entire pot for the week. Maybe every weekday at lunchtime, that was what I was going to have, spaghetti. Or I could, again, cook a big old batch of chicken breasts. And every night during the week, I've already got cooked chicken. Maybe I grilled it all on Sunday night. And every night I'm going to pull out one of those chicken breasts and I'm going to make a different meal. Chicken tacos, chicken salad, chicken fajitas, chicken spaghetti, whatever. I'm going to use the chicken every night for that. But I only had to cook one time, because I like simplifying when possible. So if I have a recipe for lasagna, I want a simple recipe that only has maybe 5 ingredients. Now, you might be one of these people that you grew up cooking from scratch, and you might still do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that might be why you don't feel the need, why bother to do all that work just for me or me and my spouse? Well, that's when you switch it. Instead of making that homemade lasagna that you've always had and everything's from scratch, go simpler. Still make the lasagna, but only have the 5 ingredients instead of the 15 ingredients. Buy a jar of spaghetti sauce instead of making the spaghetti sauce. That might be what gets you cooking again, is just simplifying it and not having as many steps. Feel free to let someone else do the work. Now, this does not mean go out and go to a restaurant and pick up some food and let them cook it. That's not what I'm referring to here. If you are going to do that, then don't do it that often. That could be a special night, between you and your spouse. It's going to be Friday night or something. And try to keep it healthy. Try to watch portion sizes, all the things that I've already kind of mentioned. But when I say let someone else do the work, what I'm talking about is buy some of it already pre-cut up. It could be a bag of lettuce instead of buying the head of lettuce. Now, I will say, if someone else is going to do the work, you're going to pay more for it. So a perfect example is, they have different food processors that will help you, so you don't have to do all the dicing and slicing. Maybe you're tired of doing all that. That's too much work. So you can buy a food processor or whatever, and it'll chop it all up for you. Or you can buy it already pre-cut up. One of the things that I hate cutting up is onions, because it makes my hands smell for like 2 days. So sometimes, instead of buying an onion and cutting it up myself, I will go ahead and buy a container of already diced onions. Now, the actual onion is going to be much cheaper than the container of diced onions, because I'm going to pay for the convenience of it, that someone did the work for me. So it's going to cost more. So you kind of have to figure it out. Some people say they don't have time to cook, or they don't feel like it. Some people say I don't have the money to buy everything pre-cut or pre-done. It's kind of a balancing act of what what is your biggest issue with making your own food? Is it time or money? But you can buy some stuff that's already cooked and add it to your dishes. So one of the things that I will buy is a rotisserie chicken. At the end of the workday, around 4:30, 5 o'clock, my local grocery store will have the rotisserie chickens, hot and ready to go in the deli section. So I can buy that, and we'll have the rotisserie chicken for dinner that night. But my girls eat like little birds, so we will have half the chicken, if not more, sometimes left over. So I will use that leftover chicken. I'll pull it off the bone, throw the rest of the waste away, and I've got this leftover chicken. And then tomorrow I'll use that chicken, my leftovers, in another dish. I might have some leftover roasted veggies tonight. I will use that and make a roasted veggie wrap the next day for lunch. Or I can use those veggies, whether I've cooked them or not. If I have some leftover, I didn't put all the mushrooms in my meal last night, so I have some leftover cut up mushrooms, I can throw that in an omelet and have an omelet the next day. So figuring out what you want to do, if you're going to let somebody else do the work for you, or if you want to do it a little bit yourself. But again, the main thing is staying away from eating out all the time. Also staying away from buying those unhealthy pre-made meals. So don't go to the grocery store and buy, frozen dinners, or they have the chicken stir fry skillet meals. So all you have to do is open the bag, dump it in the skillet, and basically, cook it for a couple of minutes. You're just stirring it up. It's very, very easy. Now, I'd rather you do that than go eat out, because doing that is healthier for you than the food you'll get out at a fast food, and it's much cheaper. But I'd still rather you cook for yourself instead of the chicken stir fry kind of skillet meals, because they're very high in sodium. And if you have heart issues, which heart disease is a very big problem in our country, then you want to stay away from those unhealthy meals. So let's get ready. We've read our recipes. We got some easy ones. We've checked our pantry to make sure we've got all the ingredients that we need. We have planned our meals for the week using our grocery store circular flyer. We even consulted the My Plate to make sure it's a good balance. It's very colorful. We've made our grocery list. Well, you may be making a paper grocery list, which is perfectly fine. One of the things that I do to help me prepare for meals, whether it's just me and my spouse, or if I've got all the kids with me, is I will use 2 apps. One of them is called AnyList. It's my grocery store app. It's an app that I can download on my smartphone, and I can put it in my grocery list. It will organize it based upon the category that it's in. So it'll put all of the dairy stuff together. It'll put all the produce stuff together, you know, the those kinds of things, the meats. And my husband, being that it's an app and we can both download this app, we can share the app with each other, that we both see the grocery list. He can see if I add something and he can add something, and then I can go to the grocery store that afternoon. And instead of having a paper list with me and having to call him and see, is there anything you want to add to the list? He's already added it. He added it on his phone and it popped up on mine. Another app that I will use, and there's a variety of them, is Recipe Book. This is a list of my recipes that I like to cook fairly often. And this app, as well as several other recipe book apps, will allow you to pick, I'm going to have these 4 different meals that I've picked out and I've selected. I can add those ingredients from those meals to my grocery list. So I don't have to individually type everything. I can pick this recipe, this recipe, this recipe, put all of those ingredients on my grocery list. It saves a lot of time. Now, again, don't forget to take that grocery list, to go back through your pantry and make sure that you cross off anything you already have, because the app can't tell you what you have in your pantry. But no matter what, again, I'm a very simple, basic person, and I think that that helps people if they only want to cook for 1 or 2, or just to keep it simple. So making sure you have the basic kitchen supplies in your house. You don't have a food processor. You don't have to have an Instapot or any of this stuff. If you do, that's just gravy. That's just extra. But you need basic, you know, 1 or 2 pots or pans, knives, a couple of cutting boards, specifically for raw and ready to eat, basic kitchen supplies. And then same thing in your pantry. You need those basic ingredients. You know, the rice, the pasta, the canned goods, especially during September is disaster preparedness month. You know, making sure that you are prepared, whether we've got a pandemic or we've got a hurricane and everybody's stuck at home. And that includes some of the basics like flour, sugar, baking soda as well, in case you do have to make some of those things out of scratch. I could not find pancake mix for my daughter who loves pancakes. So we went old school and we made our own pancake mix, which I do a lot of the times anyway. And we were able to make pancakes, even though I couldn't find the pancake mix that she likes. So if you need to save some time, I've already mentioned buying pre-washed, pre-cut veggies. You can buy individual servings of meat. So I will, you can just kind of go to the actual butcher and say, this is just all I need. Can you cut me or slice me this? And they'll do that and wrap it for you. Or I will go to the freezer section, and the chicken or even the fish like salmon or something, they will have each piece individually wrapped inside this big freezer bag. So if it's just me and my husband, I can just pull out 2 slices of salmon. If it's me and the whole crew, I can pull out 5 pieces of chicken. So I can individualize it, that as opposed to having an entire pound or entire package of meat that I have to defrost or that I have to cook the whole thing. And it saves me money and helps prevent waste. You can also buy steam bag veggies. So if you don't want to, you know, cook or cut up veggies or whatever, you can, if you have a little bit of extra money, because again, you're paying for the convenience of it, buy the veggies in the freezer section that are the steam bags. So all I have to do is take this bag, throw it in the microwave, pop it on for, I think, 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever it is. And afterwards, I'll have steamed vegetables that are healthy for me. You can add a little seasoning to it or mix it up with something and you're good to go. You can even do this with other things like rice. It takes like 20 minutes to cook rice, and sometimes I don't feel like it or I don't have time for it. I don't like when rice takes more time to cook than the rest of the entire meal. So they have Uncle Ben's ready rice bags that you do the same thing with your steam bag veggies. It's a little pouch. I think it has like 2 to 3 to 4 servings in it. So I throw this in the microwave and cook it for 90 seconds. And then I have nice, delicious rice. I try to get the ones that are whole grain rice, so I get the extra added benefit of being slightly healthy, and I don't have to do all the extra work. Now, buying the steam bag rice is going to cost you more than just buying a regular bag of rice because you have to cook it. And again, you're paying for the convenience. No matter what, be sure to look at the nutrition labels, but we also want you to look at some other labels, checking out the unit price. So on this slide, I have a picture of some green beans, two different prices. What we typically look at is the price that's in yellow. That's the retail price. That's, you take that can to the checkout register, that's what you're going to pay for it. But I want you to look at the unit price, which is what's the one in orange, because that will tell you the price per pound, per ounce, or whatever weight measurement it's based off on. Because a couple of things. It depends on the size of the can in this particular case. You could have one can that is 8 ounces, and then you could have another can that's 12.5 ounces. You can't really compare the retail price because naturally the 12.5 ounce should cost more because you're getting more food. Okay, I want to know the price per ounce. And you can see this is another reason that one of the shopping rules or recommendations I make is to buy store brand, because the one on the left is the store brand and it's only 7.3 cents per ounce. The other one is 9.8 cents per ounce. There's nothing wrong with store brand. It has the same nutritional value. It has, to me, the same flavor, because I often tell people when I go to Food Lion doesn't have a farm. Okay, so Food Lion buys their green beans from a farmer, just like Del Monte is a farmer. You know, they have their farms. So you're still getting the same green beans. It's not made at the store. They just don't have a brand to it. And so a lot of times you're just paying for the brand. Now, if you feel that that brand, you know, there's a difference. Like I know some people, mayonnaise, they're not going to get store brand. They're going to get Duke's or Hellman's or just whatever else. So if you have a particular item that you love that brand, stick with it, you know. But if not, buy store brand. It's cheaper. And even if you're using a coupon, you can get the store brand cheaper than if you have a coupon for the name brand. So, and that way you don't have to worry about cutting out coupons either. I also recommend shopping the perimeter of the store, so kind of the outer edges of the store, because that's where you're going to get that fresh produce, that fresh meat, the dairy products, the eggs, those kinds of things. The stuff in the middle is a lot of the stuff that we don't need. It's the snacky stuff, you know, the chips, cookies, cakes, pies, you know, all that lovely stuff. If you are going to go in the middle aisles, that I go for, you know, the non-food essentials. You know, I need detergent, I need soap, I need toilet paper. And I'll also get bread, whole grain preferably. I'll get cereal, whole grain cereal. I will get canned veggies or canned fruit. And that's kind of what I get. And I'll get pasta because I do not hand crank, you know, homemade pasta. But those are the things that I get in the middle aisles. And I try to stay away from the rest of it because a lot of it is higher in price, higher in calories, and is going to make my waist bigger. One of the things you can also do is pay attention to what's in season. You know, this is a perfect time to start buying those sweet potatoes and those pumpkins and different things like that. But if you're going to try to find strawberries, you're going to pay for them now because strawberry season ended a couple of months ago. They're still out there. You're just having to pay for them to be shipped to this part of the country. So make a plan for your leftovers. We've talked about a couple of things, you know, cooking a big old batch and eating more than once. You can also make things like muffins. You know, a lot of people skip breakfast and it's one of the most important meals of the day. So bake your dozen muffins. You can keep a couple out and you can freeze. Muffins freeze great. Freeze some of them so you have breakfast for a couple of days this week and a couple of days next week. You can use some of the things you already have. If you have some leftover fruit, make a yogurt parfait. You know, get some yogurt, some fruit. If you got some leftover cereal or whatever, put it in there for a little crunch. I mentioned some of your vegetables. You could put them and have a roasted veggie taco wrap kind of thing. You could have your veggies left over and put it in your omelet. You can use leftover veggies or extra veggies and even meats in wraps, tacos, soups, stir fries, on top of a salad, and an omelet, all kinds of stuff. You got leftover bread, make stuffing or croutons. There's so many different things that you can do. And if not, you can always freeze most of the stuff for later to be used in stews or other kinds of foods. So you got your leftovers. Food safety, we want you to refrigerate your leftovers within 2 hours. So you cook your meal, especially like Thanksgiving. We have a lot of foodborne illnesses at Thanksgiving because people cook their meals and leave it sitting out for people to pick off all day. Your leftovers should be refrigerated within 2 hours of finishing cooking. So either put them in the fridge or put them in the trash. If you are going to freeze them, make sure that you have proper food grade freezer or storage bags, or containers. You can vacuum pack them. That's perfectly fine too. Always write on those packages what it is and when it was made or when it was frozen. Because I can't tell you how many times I pulled something out of my freezer and I can't tell, is this chili, stew, soups, what is it? When you cook and you have leftovers, if you store them properly in your refrigerator, those are good for 7 days, okay? Food safety, 7 days. Just like if you go to a restaurant and they serve you chicken salad, they could have made that chicken salad, 6, 7 days ago. That is allowed. Food safety is fine for 7 days. Now, the food quality might not be as good. It might not taste as good if you've had leftovers in the fridge for 5 days, okay? But it's perfectly fine safety-wise. We tell people, we recommend no more than 4 days. We call it the 4-day throwaway because often you will tell somebody, okay, you can keep this for 4 days, and they'll kind of hold it for 5 days or maybe even 6 days. We kind of squeak a little bit out of it. We don't want to waste money, so we don't want to throw away food. So when we tell people, even though technically it's good for 7 days, we recommend 4 because we know you're going to keep it an extra day or 2. If I tell you 7, you might try to keep it 8 or even 9 or 10 days, and that's going to get into the food safety issues. If you're freezing it, again, it just becomes a quality issue. The quality will start to deteriorate about 1 to 3 months after you have frozen it. Safety, it should be fine as long as it stayed frozen and your freezer didn't shut off. It should stay food safe, but the quality will deteriorate. If you're gonna use spices, we always recommend people to watch the sodium in their foods, to spice it up a little bit. Don't just have plain, I mentioned the steam bag veggies, put some spices on it. Don't just have the plain of stuff, because you're going to be less likely to want to cook for yourself if it always tastes bland, if it doesn't taste good, especially if you're like, oh, I'd rather just go out and get something out to eat. We do want you to be heart healthy and cook with less salt. There's a lot of spices and herbs. I've got a whole lot of other information about spices and herbs that I can share with you if you're interested. But if your recipe calls for you need to pay attention if it's for dried herbs or fresh herbs, because that's going to change the amount that you use. If your recipe, if you're like me, a lot of the recipes might say fresh herbs. I pretty much use all dried herbs because I don't have time or space for fresh herbs in my refrigerator. So I have dried herbs. So if my recipe calls for, a tablespoon of fresh thyme, then I only have dried. So I need to use 1/3 of that in my recipe, okay? So that's just the thing, because the general guideline is when you're using fresh herbs in a recipe, you're gonna use 3 times as much of a dried herb. So pay attention to what your recipe says. You might have to go up or you might have to go down with the amount that you're using. And when I said spice it up, take the same foods. There's only so many kind of proteins. You got chicken, fish, beef, pork, very basic kind of stuff. But you need to spice it up. So have different recipes for the same food. My kids love pork tenderloin, but I don't want to always use the same recipe because, it'll get tiring of it. So I've got 2 different marinades. I'm still making marinade pork tenderloin. But one day I'm like, I want kind of the soy sauce, brown sugar marinade. And the other day, I'm feeling kind of Dijon mustard and some rosemary marinade. I will find a marinade that I can use for pork, for chicken, and I will switch them up. No matter what kind of meat I'm having, I'll pick a different marinade. So this is just an example of that. Whenever people are talking about cooking for 1 or 2, everyone's always thinking about saving money and saving calories. I want to lose weight and save money. So you can, as I mentioned, make it easier on you and buy the stuff that's convenient, the stuff that's already done the work for you. But if you want to save money, then buy the cheaper stuff. So the stuff that you have to cook yourself. So instead of buying the instant packets of rice or grits or oats or, whatever, buy the regular cooking ones and you actually cook it. It's going to take time. You might have to do it the night before or 20 minutes versus, 2 minutes. You can use smaller amounts of meats. So sometimes I don't want to use an entire pound of ground beef or ground turkey, whatever meat I'm using, and I want to make a burger. So I can actually only use half of the pound of ground meat, and I'll put some mushrooms in it. So I'm making me a mushroom beef burger. Or I can even make me a black bean burger, some meat, some beans, because the whole point is I need protein. Black beans, peanuts, eggs, they are wonderful sources of protein. So you doesn't always have to be meat. You can use canned meat as well. It's a perfectly good substitute. And if you're putting it in something, if I take canned chicken and put it in a fajita or put it in a spaghetti that has oregano and basil and different kinds of things, you won't taste the difference. You won't know that it's not real chicken or fresh chicken versus canned chicken, because it's the spices and the flavorings from the other stuff that I'm putting in the recipe that's gonna change it. So just making a plan for your leftovers. It is healthier for you if you eat your fruit instead of drinking it. So that orange is gonna be much cheaper, less calories, more fiber, more, healthy nutrients for me than that glass of orange juice. Because a glass of orange juice is gonna probably have more sugar, less fiber. It's going to cost more because, again, they've done the work. They've squeezed the juice for me. But no matter what, reading your labels, nutrition labels, unit price labels, and watching out for the fat, the sodium, and the sugar. We call it the evil trifecta. The three bad things that you want to stay away from is fat, salt, and sugar. And when you're reading your labels, not just nutrition labels, reading the dates on your products. We have a lot of people who waste a lot of food because they throw food out that's perfectly fine. So reading those. When you see the word sell by, this is the last date the stores are allowed to have this product on sale. Okay. And it's good for a couple more days. So you can get a cheaper product. They'll usually lower the price because they only got a couple of days left to sell it. So you can buy stuff that's about to expire and have it within the next day or two, or freeze it. Buy it when it's on sale and freeze it. Perfectly fine. You can also look for the other dates, which are use by or best by. They're pretty much the same thing. This is the manufacturer date. This is when the manufacturer guarantees the quality of their food by this date. So if you have a bag of chips or crackers or something, the manufacturer is guaranteeing that this food will not be stale if you eat it by then. Okay. So a lot of food will last much, much longer. The use by, best by dates on shelf stable food can be a very long period of time. So, look for those days, but just because it goes past those days doesn't mean you can't still eat it. It's not an expiration date. It just might be, those chips might taste a little bit stale. They might taste perfectly fine. They're just not guaranteeing it. Same thing. My husband, if he looks at that milk jug and it is on that date or past that date, he's throwing it out. I'm kind of I'm cheap, so I'll smell it, I'll look at it, and if I don't see any chunks or anything, I'll still use that milk, or I'll try to use it up in the next day or so, or that kind of stuff. I don't always have to throw stuff out. I don't look at the color of stuff. The only time I throw something out is if there's mold growing on something. I don't cut off a chunk of it and just eat the rest of it, because mold spores, you can't see them, mold spores can actually go up to about an inch within a food sometimes. So if you got that moldy cheese, you can see the mold, but you can't see the mold spores. And it's kind of like the roots of a tree. It could be inside this cheese that you can't see it. Bread, if it's individually sliced, is a little bit different. Maybe you could just throw off some of those slices and the rest of it should be fine. But again, when in doubt, throw it out is what we always tell people. So liven up your meals. If you are cooking for one or two, a lot of times people just stop because they're kind of bored with their meals. It's the same thing all the time. So add, how can I make this more colorful? Take your normal foods that you always cook with. How can I spice it up? Whether it's using spices, adding a new veggie to it, putting it in something. It's not the same boring chicken, potatoes and roll. Okay, instead of having mashed potatoes, can I take these potatoes and roast the potatoes? Can I add a green veggie? Put some broccoli on the plate too. Instead of just having the plain chicken I've cooked in the skillet, can I marinate it? Can I cook it on a grill? Can I cook it in, some kind of sauce? What can I do with it? If you have some of those leftover things, make that cheese pizza and you've got some leftover roasted veggies, throw them on top and cook it up in there. You can get a bagel, put some yogurt and some fruit on top of it. You can add veggies or fruits or other things to a salad. So instead of just having a plain Caesar salad, throw some more color on there, throw some more veggies on there, throw some fruit on it, throw some, meat on it. If you got some leftover stuff, make it a taco salad. There's so many different ways that you can take something and liven it up. So just thinking about that, even if you just get, here are my top 10 meals, and you just make those like every 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, I'm gonna make these 5. The next week, I'm gonna make the next 5. And then I'm gonna start over at the beginning. So, you're spreading them out a little bit. I don't mind having, something every 2 weeks, the same meal, because I've had so many different other things in between. If you are gonna be eating out, we try to encourage you to eat as healthy as you can away from the home. We understand eating out might make that impossible. So is there any way you can eat less, sharing an entree with a friend or, a spouse? So you get a variety and you also can reduce cost. You can order an appetizer as a main course. I will go ahead and get a to-go box. So as soon as I sit down, I'll order my meal and they bring me my meal and I said, this looks great. Can I have a to-go box? And I'll go ahead and put half of it in there. Because if I don't go ahead and put that half in there at the beginning, I might eat 3/4 of it. And then I really don't have enough to take home for a leftover, or I'll just try to finish the whole thing off. So you tend to overeat, or you throw food away and you waste it. So I will do that. Trying something new. So don't go out to eat something you can cook at home. Do something different, Oh, I never eat, I'm never going to cook a lobster, or whatever it is. It could be something very, very simple. This is what I like someone to cook for me. Could be something you're not good at cooking at. Like, I am terrible at cooking steaks or whatever. Go buy you a steak. Watch portion size though, too. Choose lower calorie meals. A lot of these restaurants have sections on their menus. If it's a sit down restaurant, they have sections on their menus that this is the 500 calorie section, or the Weight Watchers section of their menu, or the guiltless pleasures or something like that section of your menu. So you can watch for those calories. You can watch for the portion sizes. Watch the extra, the breads and the chips and, all the buffets and stuff like that, and stay away from those because they're going to cost you more and be unhealthy. So I've got a lot of references in different universities that I gathered different materials for to help do this presentation. So I will include that when I email and share with you my PowerPoint and the recording of the webinar. Is I will give you some different recipes. I will give you fact sheets, information from these different recipes, and so much more. If you have any questions, you can always contact me, but I do have a couple of programs coming up. All of my workshops right now are free and take place from noon to 1 in the afternoon. My next one is next Tuesday, September 29th, 2020, and it's on healthy eating on a budget. Then the next day on Wednesdays, starting Wednesday, September 30th through October 21st, I'm going to do a 4-week Dining with Diabetes program. And then the following week, I will start on Tuesday, October 6th, a Let's Get Physical. So instead of eating and food and nutrition, we're going to go to the other side of it and talk about physical activity, fitness, how to get fit and stop sitting so much. If you want to contact me, here's my contact information. You can also check me out online on Facebook, on Instagram, at Person Granville FCS. We always have information about our upcoming programs, as well as delicious recipes and educational videos. Thanks for tuning in.